Good afternoon, Louisiana. My name is Zoe Collins-Rath, your host for today's LSU Women's Basketball Tournament Update, sponsored by Hancock Whitney. And we have our friend Reed Darcy in the back, and we have with us today Scott Rabelais. Scott, how are you doing a few days removed from Selection Sunday?
I'm doing very well, Zoe. Thank you. I hope you are as well. It's the weather's invigorating, and we've arrived at. I love college football season, but we've arrived at my favorite 4 sports weeks of the year. We got the 3 weeks of the NCAA tournaments, and then that little golf tournament in Augusta, Georgia, that they have every year. They got a flag for back there somewhere. So this is my favorite 4 weeks of the year. I'm very pumped up.
Me too, and of course, you can't forget about MLB's opening day.
That's true.
That just sneaks up in the middle of nowhere. So, since we are a few days removed from Selection Sunday, LSU has been preparing for the last few days, and they are 28-2. Angel Reese broke Sylvia Fowles' double-double record this year. She's number 5 in NCAA women's basketball with points, and LSU is 9th with field goal shooting and first for free throws made per game, and 3rd in the NCAA for offensive rebounds. Those sound like really great numbers, but can LSU translate that on the court when they play Hawaii on Friday?
Well, I think they can, and I think, although to your point, I think there's still some question marks about this LSU team, despite their record, despite the fact that they have a player like Angel Reese who made first team AP All-American this year, this morning rather, very deservedly. Only player in the country in the top 5 in scoring and rebounding, so that's very impressive. LSU only wound up with the number 3 seed in their regional, the Greenville 2 regional, even though they are still number 3 in the net, which is the main metric that the NCAA selection committee uses to seed the teams in the tournament. Why is that? I was talking to Charlie Cream, the ESPN bracketologist at the SEC women's tournament in Greenville a couple of weeks ago, and he said part of the net is that it factors in offensive efficiency and defensive efficiency, and his theory is that LSU built up a lot of its offensive and defensive efficiency by beating up on weaker teams. And their non-conference schedule, of course, as everyone's talked and written about it, it was not strong for a lot of reasons that Coach Mulkey has maintained. That said, LSU's playing at home. They've started to get some tougher games under their belt. Obviously, playing South Carolina, they played Tennessee in the SEC tournament, and they have the experience of last year's tournament with them as well, where they didn't make it out of Baton Rouge to the regional. So that's the goal. That's the goal, is to get out of here, advance to at least the Sweet 16, and then you see what happens from there. And I think everyone's expecting LSU to do that, and they have the team to do that. And like Hawaii, good for them that they made it here. I think they finished 3rd in the Big West Conference, won their conference tournament, a little bit of an upset, beat Cal Santa Barbara. But they have an 18-14 record. I believe LSU, they're actually point spreads on women's basketball, the NCAA tournament this year. LSU's like a 29-point favorite. So I think the Tigers will be favored, but then they're looking ahead to a tougher second-round matchup Sunday against either Michigan or UNLV.
Yeah, and since I'm on the sports betting team, I wrote those odds. It doesn't seem to be fair that LSU is, if I remember correctly, almost a 29-point favorite against Hawaii, and they're preparing for that. And I feel like the mood in the locker room has been changing, and they're a little bit amped up for these next few days, because I imagine it wasn't that great playing and losing to Tennessee in the semifinal round. So, and since they've been practicing since Selection Sunday, can you talk a little bit about what the mood in the locker room has been since they know, okay, we're the number 3 seed, we're playing a number 14, and we have a chance to play 2 games at home?
Well, I think they probably. Well, first of all, they lost to Tennessee. That was almost 2 weeks ago. So they've had you have a weekend off. Then you start the NCAA tournament. Being in the SEC, that's just the way their conference tournament schedule is set up. So they've had a long time to stew over blowing that 17-point lead to Tennessee in the SEC tournament semifinals. And Coach Mulkey has said some of their practices have not been too pleasant. She's not happy with the way that they they let the game go against a quality opponent. Of course, Tennessee did work their way all up the way up to a 4 seed, and they're hosting games as well in Knoxville this weekend. But they're not happy about that. I think the mood is this a little something to prove. I think they have a little chip on their shoulder, and they're not. Well, I don't think the players are very unabashed about what their goal is. Alexis Morris, the point guard, who's the only returning major contributor from last year's team, is a Texas native, and she said her senior night she wants to be in Dallas, which is where the Final Four is. So that's a long way to go, but that's an admirable goal. And I think this team has a lot of confidence. I think they have they're a little upset with themselves, and I think they have something to prove, especially after coming up short last year in a very similar situation, being a 3 seed, struggled to win their first round game against Jackson State, and then lost to Ohio State in the second round and failing to advance. A large part because they didn't have a healthy Alexis Morris who had a knee injury, but they're healthy this year, and they have that motivation behind them. I expect a very good effort by LSU on Friday to take command of that game, and then to win whoever comes out of the other game against Michigan UNLV. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but I think LSU will advance, and I think that's certainly their expectation. If you got them to be honest in the LSU locker room, that's what they're saying. But I'm sure they've been working very hard and been very hard on themselves getting ready for this NCAA tournament.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk a little bit about the scouting report with Reed coming up next. So, Scott, thank you so much for stopping in today and sharing us your thoughts, and we'll see you on Friday.
All right. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. And now, Reed Darcy, how are you doing?
Hi, Zoe. How are you? I'm doing great.
Good. So you heard Reb and I talking about who LSU may face next, and it could be a little bit of a deja vu situation if LSU makes it to the second round. And, they have to play Michigan. And last year, they lost to Big Ten team Ohio State in the second round of the tournament. So what's the scouting report?
Yeah, so I think, the first they have to get past Hawaii. And, we're all expecting that game to look a lot like many of LSU's non-conference games this season, where LSU gets an early lead, 20, 25 points, and then they sort of coast to a victory. So Hawaii's, like they said, they finished third in their conference, and the only reason they're in the tournament is because they, pulled off the upset in the conference tournament. So I think Hawaii shouldn't be much of a problem, but I think Michigan, either Michigan or UNLV could present some problems, but especially so for Michigan, because I think they've got a really good combination of size down low and some guard play as well, because they start 2 post players who are over 6'3", and so I think that's especially key. If you want to upset LSU, you have to have some size down low who can match up with Angel Reese and LaDacia Williams' length. And so that's Emily Kaiser and Cameron Williams, a junior and a fifth-year senior. So I think they could present some challenges down low for Angel Reese and LaDacia Williams, as well as some of their wings. Like you look at Layla Felia, she's shooting 41% from 3 this year. That's really, really good. So I think that particular matchup could be challenging, especially when you factor in the outside shooting that Michigan can present.
Yeah, and the Big Ten has sort of been on a rise. I grew up in the Chicagoland area, grew up watching a lot of Big Ten basketball. Now, for some reason, it has exploded. And I think another great example of exploding this season is freshman Flau'jae Johnson. You wrote a fantastic profile on her. If you haven't read it, go read it. It's on the Advocates website. Can you talk to me a little bit about how much she's grown and how much she's, feeling herself a little bit, being named Freshman of the Year in the SEC and just making a name for herself? Because she said in a video that came out when they did their W Slam sheet that she wasn't expecting to starting, and she was kind of holding back tears when her name was on that sheet. Talk about Flau'jae a little bit.
Yeah, well, thank you, Zoe. First of all, I appreciate that. And yeah, Flau'jae's been awesome. She's had an awesome year, and I think towards the tail end of the year, she sort of hit kind of that freshman wall where she sort of slowed down a little bit and her shooting numbers kind of dipped. But you saw her in the SEC tournament, you saw her start to shoot the ball really well. She hit a bunch of threes in LSU's 2 games in the tournament. So hopefully those struggles, from the field are behind her, and that she can really provide LSU with the scoring punch. Because whether her shooting is there or not, you're going to get maximum effort from her on defense. And while she's crashing the glass, she's one of the best rebounding guards in the country, both offensively and defensively. And she also matches up really well with a lot of opposing guards. So whether her shot's falling or not, she's going to give LSU a really tough defender on the perimeter, and she's also going to not afraid to crash the glass and rebound. So I think she and I think Jasmine Carson for LSU are the 2 X factors. If their shot is falling and if they can hit a few threes, then I think LSU's pretty much unbeatable, as you've seen throughout the year. When you combine that with Angel Reese's consistency and the rebounding they have down low and the paint scoring they have. So I think if you see her really step up to the moment and shoot well, I think that can help LSU make a deep run into the tournament. Obviously Jasmine Carson for that as well. You know what you're going to get from Angel Reese. You know what you're going to get from Alexis Morris. But those 2 role players, I think, will be key. And Flage is just super impressive, man. Like she is, you forget she's 19 years old. Just the way she conducts herself, her maturity, her IQ, not just basketball wise, but off the floor as well. She's a remarkable person, and she's crazy impressive. And so I enjoyed spending a little bit of time with her and her family to write that story, and I absolutely appreciate the time they gave me. And yeah, she's incredible.
Yeah, and you were talking about how deep of a run they can make. Are we talking Sweet 16 like Coach Mulkey's hoping, or is that a little bit too nice and think they'll go farther?
I think if everything breaks right, I think the ceiling is the Final Four. Like you and Scott were talking about, they're 3rd in the net, and that's a key metric. And it's sort of like a chicken or the egg dilemma. Are they doing that because of their, the non-conference strength of schedule, or are they doing that because, they are one of the 4 best teams in the country? We don't know. We're going to find out in the tournament, though. So I think if everything breaks right, if Angel Reese responds well to the tougher competition, to the more physical play in the playoff, and I think if the shooters get hot, I think you can see them make a deep run. But I think Kim Mulkey is probably keeping the expectations in check for a reason, because last year this team didn't make it out the second round, and she wants to keep those expectations in check, because she's always been about building blocks and taking little tiny steps, try to get a little bit better every year. And so I think maybe the Sweet 16 can be the expectation, and anything on top of that can be gravy.
All righty. Sweet 16, great, but anything else is gravy. Thank you so much, Reed, for stopping in. For Reed, Scott, who's just chilling in the back, and the rest of us, I'm Zoe Collins-Rath. Thank you for joining us for LSU's Women's Basketball Tournament Update. Have a great day, y'all.